Hi, this is Carson McTroy, and I have with me Jonathan Yanez, a science fiction and fantasy author. Some of his series include The Forsaken Mercenary, Gateway to the Galaxy, The Archangel Wars, and The Elite. Jonathan, go ahead and take it away. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks for taking the time out of your day to have me on. I appreciate it. And to Whitney, too, for reaching out. Yeah, so like you said, I've just been writing mostly science fiction and fantasy for about 9 years now. It's hard to believe, but in, let's see, 2 months from now, it'll be 9 years. Yeah.
Wow,
So I started off just, traditionally published. And then I have a saying, Carson, that gets me in trouble all the time. And the saying is, how hard could it be? I
ah,
could do that. How hard could it be? So, great experience being traditionally published. I don't have a bad thing to say, but I understand the industry. I understand they need to get paid as well. So when the royalties were coming in, they needed to take their portion so they could run their business. And I kind of saw what they were doing coming from like a sales and management background. And I thought to myself, how hard could it be? I could do this. So I broke away from the traditional model and formed my own company and started self-publishing my own products. And since then, it's just been a roller coaster of growth from like getting into the foreign market to doing our own audiobooks to doing video games and movies. Like it's been fun. And then that saying always gets me in trouble. How hard could it be? And then, a month later I'm into it and I'm crying, trying to drink caffeine to get what needs to be done.
that's awesome. Did you, when you started, did you visualize the growth that you would have, or have any idea of where you'd be now in nine
Oh
years?
my
I mean, 9 years
goodness.
is a short time.
Yeah, I keep on encouraging other people, other writers, because they write a book and maybe it doesn't hit the way they want it to hit, or maybe they're a year into it and they're struggling. And I'm telling them like this is the way it's supposed to be. Like you're supposed to struggle, right? You're supposed to struggle and have a hard time. You're supposed to fall and learn and do it better and then fall again and do it better and learn and keep on going. No idea. I had no idea that um the industry would change and grow in such a way that I would be able to, form my own company. And then looking into different avenues like foreign translation, how to get your book, translated for a foreign market. I understood that it's a very similar process as publishing. So I was able to kind of use the same tools I had learned just to publish a book to now do translations and audiobooks and so forth.
So, starting out, if somebody was starting out today, like what are some of the challenges that you would tell them to expect?
Man, I would tell them extend yourself some grace. Don't be hard on yourself. As long as you're learning and you keep on going, that's what matters because you can't stop the person who's unwilling to give up. If you don't give up, you'll get there. Everybody's journey is going to be different. It might take you 2 years. Like me, it might take you like 9 years. It was 7 years into it that I really started seeing some results. So I would say that there was definitely a 5 year benchmark for me that I was like, whoa, I started figuring things out. And then at the 7 year mark, things really blew up and took off. But I would just tell them, be patient, embrace the struggle. It's supposed to be like this.
That's actually really good advice. So for you, it was kind of like one of those hockey stick graphs where, you struggled for 7 years and then like the last 2 years it's been phenomenal, or
Yeah, yeah, it's been great. So I'd say, yeah, again, the first 5 years is kind of like when we started seeing some major growth and things started clicking. We started learning more, not just about the writing side, but about the business side. And then I would say with the last 2 years, in January of 2019, my wife was able to quit her job and just come home and be with the kids. And she works for our company now as well.
nice.
So January of 2019, things really began to take off, and it's just been up to us to find that happy medium between being grateful for what we have and being hungry for what's next.
So being a father, a husband, a writer, um, how do you find balance?
Woo, Carson, you asked $1 million question, right? I ask myself that question all the time. So, are you a fan of Bruce Lee?
I am.
Okay, cool. Me too. So he has lots of sayings I like, but one of them is be like water because water transforms. It takes the shape of whatever you put it in. It's malleable. It'll keep on moving and transforming. And I try to take that and apply it to my day to day life. Because Carson, let me tell you, there are some nights when the kids just don't believe in sleep anymore. When there's like 3 or 4 times that one of them's waking up during the night for different things, and then the other one, because we have a 4-year-old and then a 10-month-old.
Oh, wow.
So somebody's awake at any given point in the night. Somebody's awake.
Yeah.
So I have to make sure that I make sure I put my family first. And then also I have to make sure to keep my writing time laser focused, because I mean, there are sometimes I'm not getting any sleep. A perfect day for me would be waking up at 5 a.m. to get the writing done before my family wakes up. But that's not always the case. Some nights I'm up all night, so I can't wake up at 5 a.m. So what I do then is make sure that I'm just laser focused when I'm writing. So, no distractions on social media, no Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever else new that's happening on social media. Make sure that I already know what I'm going to write. So when I hit the keyboard, it's not like, oh, what's going to happen again? I'm not really sure where the story is going. Like when I fall asleep at night, I'm thinking about that next scene in my head. So
Hmm.
when my fingers hit the keyboard, just go.
Nice. So what are some of your writing habits? Do you have like a specific block? Like, I guess in a perfect world, you'd get up at 5 and get ready, but that doesn't always happen. Do you have like certain times during the day where you block off, or what do you do?
Yeah, so we'll start with the perfect day, and then we'll throw in the caveat that every week at least, there's a day or two that doesn't happen.
Right.
But I try to get up at 5 a.m. and then usually the family's up around 7 to 8, so that gives me 2 to 3 hours to get my writing in. So I try to do 4,000 words a day, and I break it up into 1,000 word sprints. So I'll sit down again. I write in Microsoft Word. So when I'm writing, if you've used Word before, you'll know when you misspell a word, you'll get that little red scribble underneath.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't worry about any of that. I just try to get into the flow state, just like where the story is going. I see the story in my head, and then I just go. Professional athletes talk about this all the time, from like football to wrestling to baseball. They talk about getting into that zone, into that flow state.
Hmm.
So I've taught myself how to get into that flow state, so the words are just coming. So I do 1,000 words, and usually takes me 20 to 30 minutes, depending how fast I'm typing.
Wow.
And then I take a break. Then I get on. Then I give myself, almost like rewarding myself. Get on my Facebook or responding to message over email or whatever it might be, and then I jump back into another sprint, and then I do another sprint. So I can usually, in a perfect day, by 7 to 8 o'clock, I can have 2 to 3 of those sprints already done. So 2 to 3,000 words finished. I get up and have breakfast with the family, maybe go to the gym, and then my wife, who also works for our company, her work day starts at 1. So I know that I need to get all my writing in and all my work before 1 o'clock, because she does all like the marketing for our business. She talks with the narrators for audiobooks, the foreign translations. Now that we have a system in place, she manages all that.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of like I put the pressure on me. Michael Jordan has a really cool saying that, when the game is on the line and who's going to have the ball, a reporter asked him, who's going to have the ball, right? When the game's on the line. And Michael Jordan said, me.
Yeah.
So I always think about that too. I'm like, it's on me. It's nobody else's fault if I didn't get my word count in. If I didn't finish it, it's on me.
That's fantastic. And after your breaks, does it take you a while to get back in the flow state, or can you get back into it pretty quick?
I think it's kind of like a muscle, right? It's like muscle memory. So as soon as I know that, I'm getting into it, all distractions are gone. I already know what I'm going to write in my head. There's no going back and editing, because I know I'm going to have to go back and edit the book anyway. So there's no point of, stopping that flow state and going back because I misspelled the word conniption or something like that.
Right.
And breaking
Yeah.
that flow state, it's just like go. So no, I've just trained myself over the years just to get into that flow state and keep it going.
So after your break, it's almost instant just to be able to get back in the focus.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'll have Microsoft Word has the word counter. So I'll
Uh-huh.
see exactly when I hit that 1,000 words, and whether I'm in like the middle of a sentence or some sort of epic fight scene, I'll just stop. And then, get up and go get some coffee, go to the restroom, come back, check my emails, Facebook, whatever. And then I'll jump in. I think of myself as like a boxer. When you hear that ding, you're right, when the bell rings, ding,
Mhm.
ding, ding, ding. And I always ask myself, like, how many times can you answer the call? How many times can you answer that bell?
Yeah.
And for me, the answer is always one more time.
So at the beginning, was that kind of hard to train yourself to do?
Yeah, 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 for sure. Like I think these are good foundational steps that people start to try. But again, if you decide to try this way and you don't do it right away, that's fine. Like I didn't do it right away. Like this is 9 years in. So make sure you extend yourself some grace. Like anything that's worth building is going to take time.
Right. No, and I think people underestimate the little steps that they can take. Like, and I've said this. I mean, people that are continually watch or hear these podcasts, like you'll hear this over and over. But people just write 250 words a day, every single day. That's over 100,000 words a year, and that's a book, you know,
Yep, for
or
sure.
two books, depending on how many words you have. So as long as you keep trying, you can build up, like Jonathan here, to that 1,000 words in 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it takes. And even if you don't, who cares? Like as long as you're doing a little bit every day, like and like Jonathan said, like you will get there. You know, it all depends on me. How hard can it be, right?
Yeah, yeah, just stay consistency. Like I don't fear the not fear, but like I don't take a second look at the author who can write 10,000 words a day, but then they break down because their brain is oatmeal and stuff like that, and who knows when they're going to write again.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the author who writes like what you said, like consistently, even if it's 200 words a day. If you can do that consistently, you'll get somewhere. Because I know a lot of authors who like do these crazy like writing sprints that like kill themselves, 10,000 words, 5,000 words, but then they don't write for like the next like week because they're so, brain dead, or it takes them so much motivation to try to get up again to go do that again. But
Hmm.
yeah, just stay consistent and build. You'll work your way up.
So you're a pretty prolific author. You have multiple series out. You also have series where you've partnered with people and co-written. How does that process work?
Yeah, so usually when I co-write, one of us will take the lead. So we come up with the idea together. So we'll talk about like, hey, let's do this. Let's do dragons and space meets Hallmark mystery. And we'll be like, yeah, that's a great idea. So we'll go ahead and partner up, and one of us will take the bulk of the writing, and then the second person will go in afterwards to do a second pass and adding more detail and more depth. So with the Gateway to the Galaxy series, I wrote that one with my wife. So we came up with a series together. Basically, it's Stargate meets Green Lantern. So I had the idea, wrote down some like not drafts, but just kind of like character names and descriptions and places and planets and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And then I took the first pass, and she came in second pass.
Nice. And so you've thrown out, like Battlestar meets Green Lantern. Is that kind of how you look for your ideas for novels? Like take two things, kind of mash them up, or what's your process to coming up with stories?
Man, I feel like inspiration comes from everywhere. I feel like my imagination just wild, working all the time. From everything from like a cartoon that my daughter's watching, get an idea from My Little Ponies or Fancy Nancy, or to a movie that I watch. And I'm like, hey, that's a really good character. So it's kind of like almost like Frankensteining the story, because I'll be
Hmm.
like, oh, I really like this type of character, and then like, oh, I really like I'll just talk about the book I'm writing right now. So the book I'm writing right now is tournament style, because I saw Mortal Kombat, the new movies coming out, and I
Right.
love tournament style books. So I was thinking like that would be really cool for like a storyline for a book in a series. Like our main character, there's like some sort of tournament he gets invited to. So like there's an idea right there. And then I was thinking like, okay, well, what new characters can I introduce to this? So you just start pulling from different ideas. It could be like songs that you like, a line in a song. One of the books that I wrote, there's a line in the song. I forget who it's by now because it was so many years ago. But I used that song lyric as a title, and it's called "Burn the Night."
No, I like that. But and like my brain and yours, like you said, like it's always going. How do you choose which idea you're going to explore and you're going to write about?
I feel like if you have an idea that you're excited and you're passionate about, one of the worst things you could do is kind of like put it on a shelf, because who knows if you're ever going to have time, or you're going to find the time or whatever to revisit that idea. So I use them now. So if like I'm excited about dragons, there's going to be a dragon in the tournament. Or if I'm excited about genies, then there's going to be a genie that shows up. So I try not to save any ideas. I try whatever I'm excited about, I use it as fuel for the current book.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. So, of course, being a self-published author, writing isn't the only thing you do. You have to wear multiple hats, and you have your wife that helps you out on that. But at the beginning, like, trying to find an editor who is very good at what they do? Like how challenging was that?
So I try to operate by word of mouth. So, kind of like what you're doing with your podcast, you're getting to know more and more authors in the community. So, just networking and reaching out to different people. And then when you have a book that's ready and you need, a cover designer or an editor, or if you want to get into audiobooks, you need a narrator, then I can start reaching out to those relationships that I've built. And then I would say 9 times out of 10, the author community is really helpful. So for my editor, I think that's what I had done. I reached out to an author that I knew and asked who he used, and he was willing to share her information. So that's how I found my editor. And then cover designer, super easy. There's so many talented artists out there.
Hmm.
I've just gone to a website called ArtStation,
Uh-huh.
and you can look at different artists who are willing to do work, and even like Instagram. If you just go to Instagram, type in science fiction art, hits and so much great talent out there.
That's awesome. I found too that the author community is very helpful. You know, the amount of people that have said yes to interview with me who, I got no credibility whatsoever, just some random person reaching out to people, and the response has been amazing. And you've been one of that. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries, dude. I'm definitely willing to have a conversation with anybody. When I first got the invite, I'm like, who is this? What's going on here? And doing some research. But yeah, I'm happy to be on.
Yeah, perfect. So, you could have written in any genre. Why choose the speculative fiction genre?
I feel like that's kind of like where my imagination goes most of the time. Like I grew up watching and reading that kind of stuff, whether it was science fiction and a lot of fantasy too. But I feel like I don't really like rules, Carson. I'm not a big rule follower. So I uh, I like creating my own stories, and I don't like being told like what I can or I can't do. So a lot of times, like that's the fun part for me when I'm writing. I'm following these characters, and who knows what's going to happen. So I feel like those genres kind of gave me freedom to kind of like do whatever I wanted. Like this page is a blank canvas, and I can go ahead and paint in whatever strokes and colors I want to use.
So going back to your childhood, do you remember like the first kind of stories that kind of hooked you in science fiction and fantasy, whether movies or books?
Yeah, yeah. So definitely Stargate. I was a big Stargate fan. Green Lantern, of course, right? We talked about that a little bit earlier. Um, for sci-fi books, Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. He did a series that not a lot of people know about because he's known for Chronicles of Narnia,
Yeah.
but he also wrote Out of the Silent Planet. So he was a fantasy and sci-fi writer. So that was a lot of fun. A lot of comic books too. Like I remember reading comic books with like Tony Stark and all his tech and his um, suits and AIs. And I think more recently, Edgar Rice Burroughs has been a big push into my like sci-fi career, just because he
Hmm.
was also a pulp writer.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And it's amazing. Edgar Rice Burroughs was so long ago, almost 100 years ago. But so many authors that I've interviewed the past month have said that he's such a big influence on their writing, the reason why they became a writer. Did you always want to be a writer?
No, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do for the longest time. Like even in college, like I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I knew I liked to read, and everybody was telling me I should go into business, right? You should be a business, get your business degree because then you could do anything.
Hmm.
So I remember going to college, still not sure what I wanted to do. So I took English classes and I also took business classes. And I remembered I didn't like my business teacher. So I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to be an English major. So in retrospect, I probably should have been more of like a creative writing major. That would give me more practice. But
Uh-huh.
I was an English major in college, and I thought like, hey, maybe I want to write a book. I got out of college and realized I needed money right away because I wasn't going to be able to survive, off my mom and dad. My dad, the best thing my dad ever did for me is like they helped me through college. I paid half the college. My parents paid half. But then
Uh-huh.
my dad's like, "Hey man, you're graduated now. You got 2 months, 2 months, and you're on your own." And back then, it was kind of like, it sounds a little harsher maybe, but that's what I needed. That's what I needed to spread my wings and grow. So
Nice.
I was like, okay, I'm going to try, writing a book. So I started writing a book, but again, I need money. So I started working, got into the workforce, and it was in the workforce for maybe 5 years before I hit a breaking point. Always kind of writing off and on, never really taking it seriously. But I thought to myself, if I don't quit now and give this author career a chance, I don't think I'm ever going to be able, I'm never going to do it. I'm just going to get into kind of like, the promotions and the next raise and stuff like that of the business world. So I quit, cashed in my 401k without telling my wife. And I told myself, I'm just going to make this author thing work. How hard could it be, Carson, right? How hard could
Yeah,
it be?
how hard? No, that's
Very hard,
amazing.
but it's worth it.
That's amazing, that you had that much faith in yourself. You did.
Yeah, I
Um,
keep
yeah, go ahead. That's just blows me away. That's awesome.
I just keep on thinking at every turn, no matter what happens, nobody is going to treat your business or your products like you are. Like
Right.
I've had opportunities to partner with other people and they've done good jobs or they've done what they can. But I think at the end of the day, if your name's on it, nobody is going to care about that product as much as you. So if you can do it, then
Yeah.
you should.
No, that's fantastic advice. Um, and you said earlier that when you sit down, you already know what's going on, to write about. So do you outline, or do you just have a movie in your head that you're playing that you just kind of know where the story's going?
Yeah, so the second. So I don't really outline unless I'm doing a co-writing project, then you kind of have to because you have to talk to the other person about what's going to go on. But if
Right.
I'm just writing my own book, so like right now I have a series called Hunters for Hire, that's just 100% me. I always think back to a quote that I heard from Stephen King when he calls his subconscious the boys in the basement. So he said when he's thinking about something or working on a scene or whatever, he'll go to sleep thinking about it, and the boys in the basement, his subconscious, will work on that problem for him. So that's what I do a lot of times. Like when I'm out, just either by myself or at the gym, and I'm just like in the zone, I'm thinking about the story or what's going to happen at nighttime. When my daughter, we say prayers at night, tell her a story when she's going to bed. It takes her about 10, 15 minutes to actually fall asleep. So I
Hmm.
sit there with her, and during that time, the wheels are turning of what's going to happen in that next scene the following day. So I think I just try to keep on feeding my imagination as much as possible, like a meat grinder,
Uh-huh.
and then it comes out the other end.
For those people that have writer's block, what kind of advice? Because it sounds like if you keep doing that, you wouldn't have writer's block because you kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so I have a very unpopular belief about writer's block. And I always use this analogy like if writer's block is a thing, then how come plumber's block isn't a thing? Or teacher's block isn't a thing? Or whatever, industry you're in, that block isn't a thing. I think for some reason over the years, writers have kind of gotten away by saying, like, oh, I have this, mythical, magical block in my mind that won't let me work. Carson, I have to have writer's block not be a thing because I got mortgage to pay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like when writer's block comes in, sure, some days are hard writing, no doubt, no doubt. Some days the words will not come and I am tearing them out of my brain to get them on the page. Everybody has it. So on those days I could say, well, it's just writer's block's not coming. I'm going to go play Mortal Kombat. You know what I'm saying? I could do
Yeah.
that, or I could sit myself down and be like, this is your job. Do your job. That's another one of my favorite sayings is do your job. What's your job as a writer? First and foremost, it's to write.
Mhm.
And then if you're a self-publisher or an indie author, then you have like the marketing and advertising, the business side. But first and foremost, if you're going to call yourself an author, your job is to write. So you got to do your job.
No, I totally agree. I don't believe in writer's block. Um, I think that, like you said, if you depend on it, then you do it anyway. But two, you said that, if your name's on it, take accountability for it, basically. And that's kind of what you have to do. If you want a book, if you want something out there that you're selling with your name on it, take responsibility and sit down and write. And whether that's someone like you that has a movie on in their head and they're able to write from it, or more like an outliner that has everything down, um, before they sit down and write. Either way, like figure out who you are and capitalize on it and do the job. So Amazon has changed a lot in the last 9 years. How do you stay current in the marketing?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's why another reason having a network of author friends comes into play. So, whether it's like, if there's Facebook groups that you can join of other authors in the industry, there's podcasts that you can listen to, like this one, and to figure out, like what's going on or what's changing or what might be new. I think the most important thing that you can do is have a community of authors. Because if you have friends who aren't worried that, adding to your fire takes away from theirs, if you just realize that a rising tide lifts all boats, they're willing to help each other. I'd be like, hey, I heard about this, or I heard about, that Amazon's changing this. That's helped out a lot.
Nice. So I don't know if you know who David Farland is or not, but I interviewed him last week, and he helped Scholastic choose what book to push one year, like 25 years ago, and he chose Harry Potter.
Oh, nice.
And his wife told him, after it became such a success, his wife asked him, um, are you mad that her books took off, or that you're not getting some sort of royalty for helping her out, or whatever? And he's like, no, like she made 80 million fantasy fans, and kind of like the a rising tide raises all boats. He's like, it just opened up 80 million more fans that have opportunity to buy my books. Yeah, having a network and lifting each other up, I think, is important.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you find those people that are willing, to befriend you and to be able to, lift you up, I think you should hold those people close. Because even though the author community is a very giving community, there are also some of those other authors who, might just like any industry has, right? Who might just be out for themselves or not want to, make friends or just doing their own thing. So that's another thing too. I always think of like a community as a herd of sled dogs. So if you have the sled dogs, right, and one dog decides not really to run, or two dogs decide they're going to go a different way, then it's not really going to work as it should. But if you
Right.
have, a group, a community of people all working really hard on their craft,
Hmm.
and you might not talk to these people every day or every week or every month even, but without a shadow of a doubt that they're working on their business, and if you have a question, you reach out, or you have something to share, that they're right there with you.
No, and I think that's important. Like you said, like surround yourself with people who want to go the same direction as you, and your career, I think, could take off. Is what kind of advice would you give somebody today that wanted to become an author,
I
especially a
guess,
self-published one?
yeah. So I would tell them to make every mistake that they can, because that's how you learn, right? So
Hmm.
I've learned more from my mistakes than I've learned from my achievements. And somebody asked me once, like, why do you always talk about failing? Why don't you talk about, learning from your achievements? Like, I do learn from my achievements, but I just make way more mistakes than I do. Like, I lose way more than I win. So by
Yeah.
default, I'm learning more from the times that I fail than from the times I win. So I would say just keep on learning, make the mistakes, even with writing. So even if we're not talking about the business side, if we're just talking about the writing side, I think it's important to know the rules of writing, and then you can break them because you're going to break them. So
Hmm.
maybe you do it sparingly, like, oh, I know this is a rule I shouldn't break, but I'm going to give myself some grace because it works in the story right here. I'm going to go ahead and break the rule. So yeah, give yourself some grace, know the rules before you break them, and then just learn from your mistakes.
So, what are some of the rules of writing that you could share?
You
I mean,
know,
I know there's a lot, and
yeah.
it's so vague that, like, I mean, there's specific things, but too, like it's kind of like the unwritten rules of writing. I think, kind of like in baseball, like there's unwritten things that you just don't do.
Yeah. Well, I've heard advice from authors who I respect, but they are preach not to use the exclamation mark very much, like to use it very sparingly. That way, it holds more of a punch or impact.
Hmm.
And I agree with that. But I've heard some rules even go to like to the extreme, like you should only use an exclamation point or mark once to twice a book. So I feel like that's kind of like a rule. Like I understand where they're coming from, right? Because if every sentence ends with an exclamation mark, it kind of loses what it's supposed to do because the reader's like, oh, every sentence is like this.
Yeah.
So I understand that side, but I also think that like one or two times, if I use it like three or four times in an 80,000 word book, that's going to be fine with me. I'm going to extend myself some grace and break that rule.
Another one that I've heard is like, don't say said. Don't use those tags. And other authors are like, yeah, like people usually just glance by that. They don't even read that. So go ahead. Like that's something else that that whether it's a written or unwritten rule that even now there's not a consensus on to do it or not to do it, you know?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've heard the same thing, and in different times in my career, I've adhered to different advice. So, like what you said, sometimes I've heard that, like, especially like with audiobooks, it's almost just like white noise that the reader doesn't even register as the dialogue continues to flow.
Right.
And then I have a team of beta readers who, after the editor looks at it and gets through it, and I do all the edits, the beta readers go in and see if they can catch anything that maybe I've missed or the editor might have missed. So I have beta readers who have opinions on that too. Like some of them don't mind the said, and some of them, advise to get rid of the said and use different words. And I can find the value in both ways of thinking.
Oh, for sure. Plus there's various rules on story structure as well. So do you as you're writing your book, do you focus on that, or is that something you work on afterwards? Do you kind of do a 3 act structure, or do you do, I don't know, like the hero's journey or
You know what's funny? I don't even know. I probably should have because I know what all that is now. But
Uh-huh.
starting off in my career, I never, not that I never, I don't want to say ever, because I can think of maybe I read Stephen King's book on writing, and I'm
Mhm.
sure there was one or two other ones somewhere in my past. But I've never sat down and thought to myself, okay, like this has to be structured. X, Y, and Z have to happen. I've always kind of like just gone on the journey with my characters. I forget who said it, but one author said that his main character is his best friend. So I just got to know my characters and like who they are and what they would do.
Mhm.
And even though I'm a pantser, I write by the seat of my pants. I do have an end in mind. I might not write it down, like there's not an outline, but I
Right.
think to myself, like at the end, the hero is going to win. I believe in hopeful stories,
Yeah.
so you're always going to be able to close one of my books with a smile on your face and feel satisfied. So I know the hero is going to end. He's going to win. In the middle, this has to happen, and I'm going to start off with like a funny comedy scene.
Oh, nice.
And then I just go.
So, how often do your characters take off on you? They're like, I don't think they're supposed to do that, but I'm gonna see what goes on.
All the time, all the time. Yesterday, I found out that one of the characters, his name isn't actually the tough name he thought, but he has a funnier first name that he doesn't go by. He chooses not to go by that name.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, dude,
And that wasn't planned at all, huh?
no,
He
no,
just
stuff like that happens all the time.
That's awesome. No, I
There's,
actually agree, like, that happens to me all the time too.
yeah, yeah, it's fun that way. There was a scene that I wrote today where they're sitting down for a meal, and the main character thinks that the dwarf at the end of the table is a guy because he has a big old beard on. But he starts talking to him. Turns out it's not a guy; it's one of the females of the dwarven race. So like
Oh,
stuff like that happens. Yeah, stuff like that happens. It's fun.
yeah, it is, and I think that's the balance that you kinda have to do as a if you're an outliner or a pantser, like, let let the creativity take over sometimes and just see what happens.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to get too woo on you, but I've been going through kind of like a realization of kind of what goes on when I'm writing because I'm able to write these books and I publish them and I get emails in from, people and messages of like people just going through hard times in life, whether it's like fights with cancer or depression or anxiety, and kind of like the books helping them get through this time in their life. And I don't think that's me, Carson. I don't, I'm not, I take zero credit for that. I feel like when I sit down to write, I'm part of something bigger, something greater. Like I'm channeling something. I'm like a lightning rod, just
Yeah.
channeling these stories to publish them and then send them out to be able to do some good.
No, that's awesome, and I bet those emails that you get from people who are suffering and where you bring joy really does brighten your day.
Oh man, yeah, I tell them all the time that I run off those emails and caffeine. If the caffeine is flowing and those messages are coming in, I feel like I could write all day.
And you're not just a writer, you're a father and a husband. What other hobbies do you have to kinda keep you sane?
Yeah, so going back to the story, work at a job that I necessarily didn't feel that passionate about in kind of like the business sales world. Well, I right out of college, and then when I quit that job, cashed in my 401k to write, I still needed to bring in money, even though I was writing now first and foremost and trying to get published.
Mhm.
I needed to do something to help the family. At the time, it was just my wife and I. Wouldn't have kids yet, but I decided to start personal training. because I love to work out.
Hmm.
So I got a part-time personal training job, and then I wrote full-time. And then I did that until the writing career took off enough where I could quit that. But I still love to work out. So I feel like there's something that happens to me, two things in my life, like for some reason, I don't know what it is, but I get a lot of clarity and I get a lot of um, ideas, and my imagination is just like rolling with the story. It's when I'm working out and it's when I'm at church. For some reason, when I'm in those zones, in those flow states, like the words and the ideas just come. So I try to hit the gym 4 to 5 times a week, just
Nice.
doing different things, whether it's cardio or lifting heavier, something like that. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's really helped, and that's basically my hobby is self improvement. So whether it's like doing the latest research on like the pros of cold showers, or trying out new exercises like UFC fighters do, like on different assault bikes, I want to invest as much as I can into myself. That way, I can give my writing and my family the best version of me that I could give them.
Nice. I think that's great advice. Doing, giving, you gotta take care of yourself in order to give the best version of yourself. And like you said, like do research and find out what you can do to improve, whether that's physical or with faith or whatever. So this pandemic has kind of got everybody down, kind of stopped traveling. If things open up, are you going to be able to go anywhere this year, or do you have any plans as far
Yeah,
as
yeah.
conventions and stuff?
Right. So I think what we're going to do this year is, again, like what you said. You said it. You hit the nail on the head. We'll see what happens, right? We'll see what
Yeah.
opens up and what the mandates are. Each state's going to be different. Um, but we plan on going to Vegas in November, my wife and I, to a conference called 20 Books to 50K. Are you familiar with that?
I am. I think I'm planning on going.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So maybe we'll see you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've gone in the past and it's been a great show. We haven't been disappointed. So we'll probably go to that one. And then there's another retreat that we do. Again, we didn't do it last year, obviously, because of the pandemic. But if we're able to do it this year, we run a retreat, a business called Archer's Rest Summit.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's just for authors to get together. It's much, much smaller than 20 books to 50K. We're talking maybe like 30 to 40 authors,
Nice.
but just to get together for a few days with like-minded authors and kind of just like help each other grow, encourage each other, create that community.
Hmm.
But again, like you said, we previous years we had it in Napa here in California.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, this year we weren't able to have it last year, and
Right.
then this year, who knows? So I don't know if that one's going to happen later on this year, or we might just wait until next year.
Well, I hope it does, and I hope I get to see you in November. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It'll be fun. Again, it just all goes back to community. There's a different relationship you can have with people when you get that face-to-face interaction.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is. I'm sure people can explain it much better than I can. But it's a different relationship that you have when you get to interact with people in real life.
No, for sure. It's like going to a concert. I mean, you can listen to the CD or MP3 player. That's how old I am in CDs and tapes, But when you go, there's something different watching it live, whether it's a sporting event or music or whatever. It's just a different thing. So yeah, the face to face interaction is um, not only different, but I think it strengthens that relationship. Well, go ahead and tell everybody how they can reach you, find your books, get a hold of you.
Yeah. So on Instagram, it's funny because I didn't really use Instagram before the pandemic. But just like that person that you were talking about who helped J.K. Rowling that said, "Hey, there's 80,000 more fans now."
Yeah.
He kind of like spun it and saw it as a positive. When the pandemic hit, I thought like, "Hey, I have an opportunity here. How can I see this as a positive thing?" So for the business side, I chose, "Hey, I don't really have a presence on Instagram. I'm going to go ahead and start getting on Instagram now that I have more time. Right? I'm not going anywhere, especially in California. I'm
Yeah.
really not going anywhere. So I have some more time to spend just being, diligent and updating. And we've tripled the numbers that I had before the pandemic. So if you want to reach me there, it's author Jonathan Yanez on Instagram. And then on Facebook, I created a group for readers and people who enjoy stories of hope and adventure. So it's called Jonathan's Yanez's Reading Wolves. I have my brand logo. I'm actually wearing the shirt right now. This is our logo for our company.
Nice.
So the logo is a wolf. So if you go to Jonathan Yanez Reading Wolves, there's a community of just like readers there who just encourage each other. We share different stories. When I have a new release, I'll post there and just experience life together.
Nice. And you have that merchandise on your website, I noticed.
Yeah, yeah. So that's another thing. It's crazy. At the very beginning of my career, I thought that, how do authors make money? Oh, they make money on books. And then I guess maybe like if they do speaking events or movies, right? Movies always a big thing.
Yeah.
But there's so many different ways as an author that you can make money. Like when you think of your IP, your intellectual property, think of it as a pie, and you can cut that pie in multiple different pieces. So whether it's merchandise on your website, it's ebooks, it's audiobooks, it's print books, it's foreign rights, it's video games, it's movies, like the list goes on and on.
Right. And you hit the nail on the head where just because you write a book, like there's so many ways to capitalize that on that, paperback and hardback and ebooks and audiobooks. And then there's the foreign markets and each, you have all four or five of those things in whatever Germany or France or whatever that can help you and grow. So um I think keeping it as a like keeping an eye on your career as a business and not just a writer can really help people out.
Yeah, and it helps out too because when you have different revenue streams that you're creating, it kind of takes the pressure off of your main revenue stream, right? So my main revenue stream is United States ebook sales. That's where I make the bulk of my money.
Hmm.
So if, I have a bad month or something happens or the industry tanks or whatever might be the case, if I've opened up these other, smaller revenue streams but that are still participating and helping, it takes that pressure off having to be like, oh no, I've had a bad month here. How are we going to be able to, buy groceries or something? Because those kids, they like to eat at the same time every day.
Right. That's great advice. Jonathan, I appreciate you getting on with me today. I hope to get to see you in November and we can sit down and have a chat, meet your wife, and really, really join a community. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you for listening to the Troy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, and share with your friends.